Hi guys, Kelsey here, and today or this week is birth story week, so I am going to share my birth story for my son. So hopefully I won't take too terribly long telling it. I have the ability to take a 10-minute story and make it into a 40-minute story, but I also sometimes have the ability to take a 40-minute story and tell it in 30 seconds. I'm going to try and find a happy medium here, so hopefully you'll bear with me here. I'll kind of start at about 37 weeks. I went to a doctor's appointment. I had had some swelling in my legs and my arms and stuff for a while, so they were kind of getting a little nervous and really checking a lot for other signs of preeclampsia. So when I went into my 37-week appointment, I went, like normal, did the urine sample, and, the nurse took my blood pressure and my weight, and then, takes you to the room and says, okay, the doctor will be in a minute, and, just like normal. Then about 2 minutes later, she comes back in and she's like, do you mind if I get your weight and blood pressure again? I was like, is everything okay? It's just like, I just want to make sure I wrote it down right. And I'm like, okay. So we go out and take it again, and she's like, okay, well, the doctor will be with you in a minute. So the doctor comes back in and she's like, okay, so your weight is jumped up, your blood pressure is spiked way up, and your urine is protein positive. So I'm like, oh, great. So, she's like, okay, just stay calm. We're gonna do, sorry, the lighting is kind of crazy at my house. I'm trying to make it less crazy. I hope it's not terrible. So she's like, just stay calm. We're gonna do a no stress test. We're gonna do a 24-hour urine analysis. So, I had to do that for the next whole day. But she's kind of like, okay, well, we're just gonna wait, but if anything goes up, it's gonna be go time. So, she did that, and, with the urine sample and my blood pressure, and everything was just kind of right at the cutoff. So that was kind of odd, but she was kind of like, I just want you to let you know, anything goes up, it's gonna be go time, and we're gonna have to make the call to go in for an induction. So it was kind of an odd feeling, because 37 weeks hits, and you kind of get it in your head like, okay, any day now, all of a sudden, bam, labor is gonna start, and you're kind of like nervous waiting for it. And then now it was kind of like this new element of like, at any point I could see the doctor and it could be like, bam, you need to go in for an induction. You're going to have a baby today. So it was really nerve-wracking. I kind of, stayed on that cutoff line. It was it was like a Friday. I was 38 weeks. And then I think Tuesday was, that following Tuesday, I was at 39 weeks at that point. So went in on, I think, Friday for an appointment. She said, okay, everything's still at the cutoff. And I'm like, she's like, are you getting headaches? And I'm like, what kind of headaches are we talking about? And, cause I had been getting them, and she's like, I think we're at the point where there's more of a risk you staying pregnant than you going in for the induction. And, it's riskier to stay pregnant than to be induced. And, right at 37 weeks, I was kind of like, I don't feel like this is time. But when the headache started, I was kind of like, okay, this feels too risky. And it felt like, to me, it kind of felt like it was ramping up, and it just kind of like the thing in my brain was saying, okay, mama, it's time. Like, it's okay to say, let's do this thing. So I went in that following Monday evening, and they started the induction. It's a really, really odd feeling. Like, I don't know what it's like to ride to the hospital while in labor and going, oh my God, I'm going to have a baby. But it's a really, really odd feeling to be riding to the hospital, feel perfectly fine, and know that they're going to pump you full of a bunch of stuff and make you all of the, like, going in feeling perfectly fine and going to the hospital knowing they're going to throw you into an immense amount of pain. And other than like going in for a surgery or something, I when is it ever that way? You're in pain and you go to the hospital to make you better. And so it was just kind of an odd feeling to like, I feel fine, but they're going to make me feel not fine. And so that was really odd. And it was, you know, really stressful leading up to it. And it was hard to go to sleep like, tomorrow they're going to put you into labor and then you're going to have a baby. So I went in, they did cervical ripening in the evening, and it was just kind of like, I felt so ill prepared. Like really, you know, kind of the birth class that I had taken, a lot of the, kind of the takeaway was like, you know, they're going to try to induce you, but don't let them induce you unless they have a medical reason. And that was kind of like the takeaway from the class. They didn't really talk a lot about what inductions were and what kind of stuff they used and what the pros and cons for the different things are. So it was just kind of like, okay, here I am with a, you know, medical reason for, you know, an induction, and just kind of like, I don't know what my options are. So I felt so ill prepared. They did the cervical ripening. I went in at about 6, and it was just such a like, I was already so stressed out. Yeah. So, you know, hardly slept a wink, was just kind of like, okay. And, you know, then, my doctor had been out of town, my normal OB. So someone else from her practice came in that night and, I think, you know, inserted the cervical ripening, and was just kind of like, hi, I don't know you. I don't really know the plan. Here you go. Whoop, and bye. So, you know, everyone was kind of talking about like, okay, well, they'll probably start Pitocin tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm really adamantly like, I don't want Pitocin, and this isn't what I want. And for some reason I had it in my head that like, you absolutely can't have Pitocin because that's just gonna just snowball things out of control. And so, you know, they're kind of talking about that. Like, so I hardly slept a wink. The next morning at about, I think about 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, my normal OB is back. She came in, she checked on me, and she's like, we don't have to do Pitocin. We'll just kind of take it easy and see how things go. She did check on me though. And she's like, okay, you're 1 centimeter now. So I think we'll just go ahead and break your water. Just like, oh my God. Okay. What? And, again, really didn't know any of the different pros and cons for any of the induction methods. And, you know, I mean, she's still like up there while she's asking this question and like waiting for me to say, okay, go ahead. And like really all I could think to ask at the time was, is it going to hurt? I don't really know. I don't really know why I asked that. And she's like, no, it's just gonna feel like, you might feel a little bit of like pressure, and then it's just gonna feel like a goosh, like, you know, with your water coming out. And I'm like, okay, whatever, if you think so. So she broke my water, and it was very odd, and they had you kind of lay there, I think, for like a half hour to just make sure you're not going into like immediate crazy labor. And so I kind of lay there for a while, and it's just the weirdest feeling if you've never felt your water breaking, which a lot of first-time moms really don't feel it until baby's already coming out and there's enough that they don't really register that it's happening. It's a really, really odd feeling, and it just keeps, I don't know, I think a lot of people, you know, when it's their first time, they think it's going to be like a goosh and a splash and then that's it. And it's really not. It just kind of keeps coming forever. And, so it was just the oddest thing. So then after that, they kind of left me alone for a while. She's like, you know, we don't need to do anything else. We'll just see how you're doing. I'll come see you at about 4 or 5 o'clock tonight and see where you're at. And if they need me sooner, they'll just call me. So I'm like, okay. And, you know, and they were really kind of leaving me alone for a while. And so we went and we walked the halls and it was fine. And then I kind of started getting contractions. And I'm like, okay, these aren't that bad. This is going to be okay. And, they were starting to kind of get a little bit more intense. It was kind of like, okay, we need to slow down. And I think maybe a time or two in the hallway, I was kind of like, okay, we need to stop for a second when I was having contractions because they were starting to get really intense. But they were kind of, you know, they would last about, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute. And, you know, we weren't really timing them because it was like, I'm already at the hospital. What's the point? They've got the monitor on and they can tell. And so, but they were, you know, stopping at a certain point. So, we go in and, you know, I'm trying to do different positions. I'm on the ball, you know, while they're, you know, they're needing to kind of get a strip with me in the room with baby's heart rate. And, you know, so I'm coming into the room every once in a while and I'll sit on the ball. At one point it was about noon and I'm like, okay, I know my mom is just sitting around and waiting for an update and waiting to know when it's okay to come up to the hospital. Cause I'm like, it's an induction. It could take forever. You don't, you know, I don't want you sitting in the waiting room for 24 hours. So I'm like, we'll call you when we get closer and then you guys can come up. So it's about noon. I give her a call and I'm like, here's what they've done. Here's what's going on. I'm getting contractions. So we're, you know, we're getting somewhere. And so I'm sitting in the, you know, the rocking chair and I'm sitting upright and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to let you go. I feel a contraction coming on. And, so this is at about noon. That contraction starts. It does not stop. There's no end point anymore. And so, you know, I'm not really feeling it in my back or anything. It's just a lot of pressure and it's just like, it's like my whole body is squeezing. Like there's just no end to it. So they're having me do different things. You know, I get a couple hours in and I'm just like, I'm starting to kind of go a little crazy and I feel like that like fight or flight, you know, thing kicks in and I'm just like, I choose like flight, but like I just mentally checked out, like hardcore. So then it's, you know, they gave me some IV medication that didn't really make a difference. You know, I really wanted to do it without the epidural. And everybody was fairly good. Like, you know, they're like, well, I think maybe it got set a time or two, like, you know, it's an option, just want to let you know, but they weren't really, you know, I didn't really feel like pressured into it. It was a very full day that day, so I did not have a tub room. My husband is like, can you find a tub room? And they're like, we're really sorry, everything else is full. You know, they kind of offered to get me into the shower. I wasn't really wanting to move very much, so, you know, I tried different positions and stuff, but kind of around the bed, I wasn't really, I seriously, like, I just kind of checked out at a certain point. So, and then at one point, it's getting later in the afternoon at this point, it's several hours later, I started feeling like I'm getting like tunnel vision, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the pain is so bad, I'm such a lightweight, like, I'm about to pass out because this hurts so bad. And when I was talking with my husband, like weeks later, like, you know, like tell me the story from your perspective. And, you know, I said something like, oh, it was really nice for those two nurses to be in the room the whole time. And he's like, well, about that. And he told me about that time, you know, I think that the pain's just so bad that I'm ready to pass out. He told me my blood pressure got so high that they're sitting there and they're like, well, we don't want to freak you out. To my husband, they're like, we don't want to freak you out, but if it goes up any higher, we're going to have to like call it. So like my blood pressure was going probably so high that I was starting to get like tunnel vision and starting to like pass out. And they're over there like, she's baby gonna need to go in for an emergency C-section. And I had no idea any of this was going on. So fortunately, like they're sitting there watching the monitors like, and apparently like it went up one point and then it came down several and then it stayed that way. So then it was okay. So, but you know, I'm waiting for the OB to come in and check me. And so I'm kind of talking to myself a little bit at that point in my head. And I'm like, okay, if she comes in and I'm not at a 10 and ready to push this baby out, I'm going to just have to call it. I'm going to need the epidural. So she came in at about like, I don't know if an hour after she said she was going to be there. She finally gets there and she checks me and she's like, oh, you're doing really awesome. This is amazing. You're at an 8. And I just start bawling and I'm like, is it too late for me to get the epidural? And everyone's like, oh my God, no. And I'm like, okay. And so they're like, we're calling the anesthesiologist. And I'm like, okay, tell them to hurry. And so they get in and I'm like screaming at the guy that comes in and he's just like the nicest guy ever. And, he comes in and he's like, okay, well, I'm going to try to get, you know, the needle placed in between a contraction and, you know, I know that at some point it'll probably still be in when you're having a contraction, but just try to stay relaxed. And I'm like, there's no effing in between a contraction. You just have to do it. So he finally got it placed and he put it in. And immediately after they put it in, it's you know, kind of started working, and it, you know, I got some relief for a little bit. And so they're like, okay, you should rest now. And so I'm laying down and I'm asking the questions, and, you know, I was really worried about like the migraines caused by the epidurals. I'm like, okay, well, like, how long, you know, after you have it would you know that that was a thing? And they're like, oh, you would be feeling like pain or pressure in your head like right away. And I'm like, okay. And so I lay down and like immediately I pass out and I fall asleep for about an hour. You know, I wake up and my husband's sitting there and I just start crying. So like the epidural worked and gave me relief for about 2 hours, one of which I spent sleeping, the other one I spent crying because I was so disappointed that I had to have the epidural. And you know, it's just what needed to happen. I feel okay about it now, but I had such a hard time with it. I felt like such a failure, and you know, it's an induction. You gotta do what you gotta do, and it's, you know, the circumstances are a little bit different, and things had to be, you know, pushed to that level to, you know, make me have a baby. I was in no way, shape, or form about to have a baby on my own. So, you know, but I mean, that's just what needed to happen, because, you know, she came in and she checked me, or the nurse came in and checked me, around the 2 hour mark, and she's like, cool, you're at a 10, let's do this. Like, okay, let's please. And the epidural's starting to wear off, and I'm really starting to feel that pressure, which was really nice, you know, in hindsight, because it, you know, really helped me push, you know, more than being completely numb would have. So that was good. And so, but I was so ready to be done at that point, and I just really kind of remember I kept asking the OB when she got there, I'm like, when is this gonna be done? And she's like, if I knew that, I would, you know, I'd be making more money than I do, because I'd be a psychic OB. And I'm like, but give me a ballpark, like, because that's just one of those things, you know, you see movies and TV shows, and they say, okay, it's time to push, and they go, like a time or two, and then the baby's out, and it's just not at all like that. And, you know, unfortunately, nobody told me that the average push time for a first-time mom is around 90 minutes. I did it in less than an hour, which is funny. The OB told my husband later, she's like, I have never seen someone with an epidural push the baby out that fast. And I'm like, it's because I wanted it done. I needed to be done. So, but yeah, pushed baby out, and immediately felt better, tired. But yeah, he was there and he was amazing. And I hardly remember a single thing after the baby was born. I was so tired. I remember it. My family was there, and my sister had to work really early the next day. So a nurse that I didn't even know came in. She's like, your sister's out in the hallway, and she says she needs to work early tomorrow, and was wondering if she could come in and see the baby. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Let me cover up, and everybody can come in and see the baby, and then they can, you know, get out of here, because it's baby was born at about 10:28. So again, from about noon to the baby being born, solid contraction for the entire time. So other than the 2 hours that I had the epidural, if anyone's keeping score. They all come in. I barely remember them being in there. My little sister told me that she came in the room, and I said, Ruthie, I love him already, which is cute. I'm like, I'm glad I said nice things, because I was so out of it. And, you know, we had kept the name a secret. And so when everybody came in, we said, okay, here's Elliot J. Sesto. And then they left, and, you know, we did our, and honestly, I don't even know if we had done it must have been like kind of, I must have just kind of covered baby up over me, and because we were doing our hour of skin to skin, and I know we definitely had that and then some. And then they kind of came in and they're like, okay, well, you know, we're going to get baby weighed. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so they took baby over and they said, okay, 8 pounds, 1 ounce. And I'm like, cool. I just passed out and I really don't remember anything. I was out like a light until they came in at about midnight and were like, okay, we're ready to move you up to recovery. And I'm like, okay, bye. And like they groggily, you know, sat me down in a wheelchair and wheeled me up holding the baby. And it was just kind of the oddest, like most surreal thing. Cause it's like, you know, they're wheeling me up in kind of the back way through the elevator and you're just kind of holding this baby. It's just like, I pushed a baby out of me. This is my baby now. And, you know, they kind of take you up to recovery and it's, you know, it's past midnight at this point and they come in and they're like, okay, we're your nurses and we're going to do this tonight. And here's our checklist and we're going to come in and do this. And before you check out, you need to do this, this, and this. And I'm just like, okay, why are you telling me this? I just pushed a baby out and it's 1 o'clock in the morning and please let me sleep. So finally they left and I like, you know, I tried to feed baby again and then I put baby down and I'm like, I look at my husband and I'm like, I'm going to sleep now. And if you do anything to stop me, I don't know what I'm going to do. And, so, you know, slept, I don't know, maybe an hour or two. And, yeah, that was about it. And then recovery is just kind of a groggy blur and they do all the things and, baby was, you know, pretty happy, healthy. We got discharged and then you kind of look at everybody like, okay, where's the person that's going to tell me what to do with this baby? And nobody really comes and then they kind of send you home and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like 5. What am I doing with this baby? And I wasn't 5, by the way. I was 27, 28. I don't know. Don't make me do math. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was 27. Oh my gosh. That's a terrible thing that I'm having to think about this hard. Yeah. But anyway, nothing makes you feel more like younger, like more ill-equipped than being sent home with a newborn. You're just like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this thing? And so, yeah, that's my birth story. Not terribly exciting. Eryn's is a lot longer and probably more interesting. But yeah, inductions are kind of crazy. It's kind of one of those things as a birth doula. It's kind of like, part of it was kind of like, it just happened the way it needed to happen. And then part of it is like, okay, if I knew then what I know now, maybe I would have tried to, ask for some things to be a little bit different. But, yeah, I'm happy to answer if anybody has any questions about induction or, if you guys want to share below, some of your birth stories, we'd love to hear them. Birth stories are fun. I love hearing them. Yeah, so we'd love to hear from you guys. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening. Hope it wasn't too terribly long. Thanks, guys. Bye.